Namaste and good morning, everyone. Let's start our Thursday class where we study the Upanishads. And these days we are going through the Shvetashvarta Upanishad. So let's do some prayers first. Om Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwara Guru Sakshat Parbrahma Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Om Bhu Bhavaswaha Tatsavitra Varenayam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Diyo Yo Nah Prachodayat Asto Ma Sadgamya Tamso Ma Jyotirgamya Mrityurma Amritam Gamya Om Sahnavavatu Sahnavbhunaktu Saviryam Karvavai Tejasvi Navadhitamastu Ma Vidveshavai Om Shanti 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 Om. We are on chapter 4 of this Upanishad, and we ended our class with the verse number 11 of chapter 4. And I told you last time that next mantra is a repetition of an earlier mantra from chapter 3. So fourth verse in chapter 3. We're going to just go through just the meaning of it and then move on to verse number 13. So verse number 12. Ya devanam prabhavacha udbhavacha vishva adhipaha rudra maharishi Hiranye garbham pashyat jaimanam sana buddhya shubhya samyunuktuhu. Ya means who? Devanam, of deities. Prabhava, origin. Cha means and, udbhava, the source. Again, cha means and, Vishwadhipa, the Lord of the entire universe. Rudra, Maharishi, the great seer. Hiranye garbham, pashyat means saw. Jaimanam, brought into being or emerging. Sa means he, na means us, buddhya, with the thoughts. Shubhya, auspicious. Samniyuktuhu, endow. So may Rudra, who is the origin of all the deities and the source of all their powers, who is all-knowing and the Lord of the entire universe, who initially brought into being Hiranyagarbha, endow us with auspicious, noble thoughts. So it's a prayer to God. And in the next mantra, establishes God as the truly worshipful. Ya devanam adhipa yasmin loka adhishritaha ya ishehe asye dvipada chatushpada kasmai devaye havishaha vidhema. Ya means who? Devanam, of the deities, adhipa, Lord. Yasmin, in whom. Lokaha, the worlds. Adhishrita, rest. Ya means who? Ishe, rules over. Asya, this. Dvipada, the bipeds. The beings which walk with the 2 feet like human beings. Chatushpada, the quadrupeds, like animals, some of the animals. Kasmei, to whom. Devai, to the Lord. Havishaha, oblation. Vidhem, offer. He who is the Lord of all the deities. He in whom rest all the worlds. He who rules over all the bipeds and quadrupeds. To that blissful Lord, we offer our oblations. So that means God is the Lord of all. We see in this world, some people worship power like the power of a sole monarch, the kings, dictators. Some respect the lordship like a multinational company these days. Some are fascinated by certain animals also, strong animals. or a person who can control the animal, like a lion in a cage. So they see that power also. But who will not revere God, who has all of these, all the powers? That's why he says God is the Lord of all deities. Yo Devanam Adhipaha Yasmin. So even all those monarchs or the owner of all those multinational companies or all the wealth, who created them? The Lord did. God, the embodiment of bliss, he says. This word kasmai, some places you will see that it's a tasmai. But when kasmai word is used, that means to whom, ka also interpreted as bliss or happiness. So kasmai divai means to the blissful God who gives us the bliss. But when we say tasmai devai, so that's where the slight twist in the word is. So tasmai, to that God. That's a tasmai devai, but kasmai, blissful God. So there's a beautiful double meaning in there. When such a God, personification of bliss, is there, which other deity will we worship? That's what it means. We don't need anybody else. So both the meanings of kasmai come into play, or tasmai. So who will not worship one who fills us with love and joy always? Because that's where love comes. That's where the bliss is coming from God himself. And who will not want to please such a God? Because God is the very source of everlasting joy. Why wouldn't you love a God like that? And havish, havish is the oblation. When we do the havan also, whatever we offer into the fire during the ritualistic fire ceremony, whether it's a samagri or even the wood or the ghee, that's called havish. So the seeker is asked to consider his actions, his work as an offering to God. That's how our actions become a karam yoga. When we look at it in a at a subtle level. So we are asked to offer our finite identity and become one with the blissful Lord. So realization is oneself becoming food for God. Whatever I do, whatever I think, wherever I go, I do it only for God. That is a havish. So it means to give up your own notion of doership and enjoyership and become one with God. See, like a children, they do things for their own happiness. But when we become parents, we do things for the children's happiness or for somebody else's happiness. But when we raise ourselves to that level where we do all our actions for his happiness, God's happiness, that's what he's talking about over here. God says, God happy in what I'm doing or not? My happiness is in his happiness. I want my beloved to be happy. Can God be found in the midst of our chaotic and busy life? Because some people say, God, this life is so busy. I have so many duties to do. How can I concentrate on you? Let's look at what he says in the next verse to answer that question. Suksham ati suksham kalilasye madhye vishwasye strashtaram anek rupam vishwasye ekam pariveshtitaram gyatva shivam shantim atyantam etihi. Suksham ati sukshmam, subtler than the subtlest. Kalilasya, of chaos. Madhye, in the middle. Vishwasya, of the universe. Srashtaram, the creator. Anek Rupam, appearing in many forms. Anek Rupam. Vishwasya, of the universe. Ekam, one. Pariveshtitaram, who encompasses. Gyatva, having known. Shivam, the Lord. Shantim, peace. Atyantam, supreme. Eti means attains. Knowing the Lord as one who is subtler than the subtlest, existing in the midst of chaos, the creator of the universe, appearing in manifold forms and encompassing the entire universe, a person attains supreme bliss. So first thing he says, God is subtler than the subtlest. So it's not only in our on our altar, but everywhere God is. There's no place where God is not subtler than the subtlest. The cause always has a subtle presence in the effect. See, just like an unmanifest Prakriti is subtle than the manifest Prakriti, which is the cause of the names and forms in this world. And God is the subtle presence even in the unmanifest Prakriti. Unmanifest means which we cannot perceive yet. God is the cause, which is the subtler than the subtlest. So God has to be subtler than the unmanifest Prakriti. And we all know that subtlety is measured by the pervasiveness. Space is subtler than air. So space is more pervasive. And God even illumines space. God is the one which gives its existence. So therefore, it's subtler than the pervading space. So then, would it not be impossible to see such a subtle God, especially in the midst of our gross and chaotic world? So he is there too. He's everywhere. There's no place where he is not. That's why he says, God in the middle of the chaos. This Kalil word has many meanings. One meaning is chaos, or a confusion, or a calamity. So God is the silent presence in the middle of the turbulence of daily life. He is the consciousness connecting, illumining, and even in between our agitated or fast-moving thoughts. When we are talking, when we are doing, when we are churning our mind and body, his presence is still there. If we take our attention towards Bhagavad Gita, didn't Arjun find solace from God, Lord Krishna, in the middle of the battlefield? The great gurus, the greatest of the greatest warriors were there. Right in the beginning of the war, he found the presence of God. So God is the truth between all our moving thoughts. God is the one which really illumines all thoughts or thoughts modifications. Even the thought of ignorance, without God, they cannot be. We cannot say that God doesn't exist without the presence of God inside us. This mouth cannot speak. There is a scripture which is called a Garbhashastra. Garbhashastra gives a name for the fetus at different stages of its development in the womb. So the fetus immediately after conception is called Kalil. So God is present even that early stage of self-formation in our life. Okay. Then he says God's all-encompassing embrace, pariveshtitaram. God embraces the whole world, the whole universe. It's not that God is inside the universe, God is outside. God is the one which is upholding it. When he incarnates, even symbolically, in our scriptures, they say that Lord Ram, Lord Krishna, they had long arms. Their arms reached down towards their knees. The long arms, so they could embrace even the fattest devotee. Long arms. So symbolically, it's like a God. When God incarnates, also embraces all. But otherwise also God is embracing everything. And what is the reward of God realization? Shantim atyantam iti. So the beneficial effect, the measurable result, the very attractive reward, and which is very evident of God realization is pointed out here. Actually, time and again in every scripture, it has been repeated. Because these rishis, these gurus, they are constantly inspiring us. They say that spiritual seekers must not seek material gains through spiritual pursuit, but they need to measure their progress only in terms of inner gain. Inner gain. Inner gain is how much more spontaneous love do I feel? How much anger and greed has reduced in me? Am I willing to sacrifice more for the sake of another? Real spirituality is not measured by certain siddhis gained. The progress towards the spirituality is when you feel this, that anger has gone down, greed has gone down, my selfish is not there. I'm ready to let go of my comfort and pleasure to help somebody. I'm ready to let go of all my wealth for others. So the highest reward of God realization is to attain everlasting peace and bliss. That's what this Rishi is telling us. See how much is there in this verse. Knowing the Lord as one who is subtler than the subtlest, that's one thing. Existing in the midst of chaos also. It's not only in the jungles and on the mountains and the caves, right in our own homes, right in the middle of our duties. The creator of the universe appearing in manifold forms and encompassing the entire universe. A person attains supreme peace. All our questions are answered in these two lines, by the way. Because we want to know where God is. We want to know, once we realize God, what will happen to us. Do we need to run away from our homes and our duties to find God? No. Right in the middle of our chaos. Let's look at next verse. That's where he's giving us some examples of the illustrious souls who have attained the truth. Sa eva kale, this is verse number 15. Sa eva kale bhuvanasya goptaha vishwadhipaha sarvabhuteshu gudaha Yasmin yuktaha brahmarishyaha devata chatam evam gyatva mrityu pasham chindati. Sa means he, ev means alone. Kale means at the appropriate time. Bhuvanasya of the world. Gopta, the protector. Vishwadhipa, the Lord of the universe, Vishwa. Sarvabhuteshu, in all creatures. Gudaha, hidden. Yasmin, in whom, yuktaha, absorbed, united. Brahmarishyaha, devata. Brahmarishi and the deities. Cha means and, tam means him, evam thus, gyatva, having known. Mrityu pasham, the bondage of death. Chindati, destroys. He alone is the protector of the world at the appropriate time. Okay, when the right time comes, he knows. Sometimes we want to dictate to God. We say, God, how come you don't come? He knows the time, the proper time. So he alone is the protector of the world at the appropriate time. He is the Lord of the universe and remains hidden in all creatures. Knowing him, thus, in whom the Brahma Rishis and deities are absorbed. So, in other words, who has realized this? Brahma Rishis and the Devatas. One destroys the bondage of death, destroying the bondage of death. So, first thing he says, Bhuvanasya Gopta, God the protector. Not only does God protect us when we are in trouble, but he alone protects us. It's not God also, God alone. And he alone protects the entire universe, not just us. The whole universe is his universe. And at the right time. Kale. Protection is valued only when it is timely. Otherwise, what use is the alarm in our house if it rings after the thieves have departed? When they have taken all the wealth away. That's why Lord Krishna said in Bhagavad Gita, Yada yada hi dharmasya. You remember that. Whenever there is a decline in dharam and increase in adharam, I incarnate to protect the world. So he decides. So he is indeed the protector of the eternal dharam. Sanatan dharam. Swastaha dharam goptaha. When dharam is protected, the whole world is protected. Because what is dharam? Dharam is the law of being. Dharam is that rhythm which maintains and sustains the world. And this world is God's world. He wants to make sure that it stays upheld. Sa ev kale. So when the time is right for the creation to come into manifestation. And once the world is created, he protects it through the cycle of time. The law of karma also, the various deities, etc. Okay, the power of fire, power of water, power of space, power of air. Those are all deities. So, and when the time is right, he dissolves the entire creation. Also, it's his creation. Whenever he wants to create, he creates. Whenever he wants to dissolve, he dissolves. But this God is unknown to the ignorant. God remains hidden. That's what it really means. He remains hidden in the hearts of the ignorant and the extrovert. He is there, but he stays hidden. Because he is veiled by the screen of our own desires. Ignorant really means worldly desires. More the worldly desires we have, the thicker the veil we have on our Gyan Chakshu. And because of that veil, we cannot see. And that is the definition of an ignorant person. Many people think that we will find God when we retire, when we get old. We have worldly duties to fulfill. A lot of people are in that illusion. And some people say, no, God is in my heart. We can always find him later. It's better to work now, accumulate, hoard, see this world. We'll do it later on. According to the rishis, that's ignorance. That's why he said, God known to the wise. Known to the wise. The qualified and prepared seekers alone realize God as Brahm Rishis and Dev Rishis. We have a lot of examples of Brahm Rishis in our scriptures. And one Dev Rishi, you know, Narad Ji is called Dev Rishi. Brahm Rishi, Vashishji. You have heard the story of Vishwamitra Ji. He wanted to become the Brahm Rishi. He had a very hard time. Ultimately, he did become. So in order to reach to that level, it does take tapasya. In order to reach to that level, it does take a detachment from this world. Brahm Rishi, Dev Rishi. So if we are qualified, if we do all that, he says God is known, God is right here, outside, inside. We got to just detach from the outer world, the material world. Reduce our desires, worldly desires. Then another thing he said in this verse is freedom from death. What is a freedom from death? Freedom from death is freedom from the fear of change. Death being the ultimate change. Because what happens at the time of the death? We discard this physical body. We change. So if we are not afraid of death, that means we are not afraid of change. We have studied Katha Upanishad. The Lord Yam says over there that death to a wise man like a pickle, which enhances the taste of a food. It's almost like a challenge that adds zest to life. He uses the word pickle over there. You can go back to your Katha Upanishad, first chapter. Verse number 25. Those who surrender to God, who is beyond death, become one with him. After that, where is the fear? There's no fear because God doesn't die. We don't die. We can never change by definition. Our essence can never change. It's just like Lord Krishna said in Bhagavad Gita, changing the body is like a changing the clothes. We are not afraid to change clothes. In fact, we look forward to changing our clothes. We want to wear new clothes, beautiful clothes. So body is just like changing the clothes. And that person is a wise. Wise is who is not attached to the temporary. And in the next mantra, this great Rishi is describing that God is a cream of life. Another analogy, beautiful analogy he is giving. He says, Gritat param mandam iv ati sukshmam gyatva shivam sarvabhuteshu gudam vishwasya ekam pariveshtitaram gyatva devam uchyate sarvabhashai. This is verse number 16. Gritat, from ghee. Param, subtle, like a supreme. Mandam, the essence of ghee. That means which rises like a very beautiful ghee. Iv means like, ati sukshmam, extremely subtle, gyatva, having known, shivam sarvabhuteshu, in all beings, gudam, hidden. And shivam over here means auspicious. Vishwasya, of the universe, ekam, one, pariveshtitaram, which is all encompassing. Gyatva, having known, devam, God, muchyate, becomes free. Sarva pashai, of all bondages. Pash means bondage. Realizing that Shiv to be hidden in all beings, like the subtle essence of a ghee that rises to the surface. Knowing that God to be the one entity that encompasses the entire universe, one becomes free of all bondages. So God, the very cream of life, extremely subtle nature of God, ati suksham. So he's conveying that with the help of this beautiful phrase, Gritat param mandam, like the cream over the butter. We all know when we boil milk, in India we used to boil milk. Over here we just get milk in a different form. Okay, but in India it was boiled. Then the tasty cream floats on the top, which we used to call malai. Then the little yogurt is put into that malai, and then it is churned. When it's churned, fresh butter comes from there on the top. And you remember that that fresh butter was a favorite of Lord Krishna, that butter. When the butter is heated, it forms clarified butter again, ghee. Lot of things are being burnt at the bottom, but the clarified butter comes on the top. That is called mandam, the tastiest and the richest aspect of milk. The very subtle essence, free of all the other ingredients. That's why milk, you can keep it outside only for a few hours. Butter for a little longer. But clarified butter, which we call ghee, can be kept outside for a very, very long time. And this is a sheer delight for the consciousness. Ati priti vishtha. So that's why the God is the very essence of life, the subtlest core of our personality, and the giver of countless joy to the spiritual seekers. So he says, this is what God is. No flaw in there. It's only bliss and bliss and only bliss. We studied in Taittiriya Upanishad, the Rishi said, God is a bliss absolute. Because these rishis, from their experience, they are just shouting it to us. They are opening our eyes. He said, Raso Vesa. God is bliss absolute. Because that bliss is the one which adds a spice to life, that which makes everything worthwhile, everything interesting. That is God. Were it not for the blissful Lord, who would even desire to live in this world? Because we all know that happiness is the only goal of everyone. Everybody wants happiness. But we are looking for happiness at the wrong place. We are looking for happiness where happiness is not. Happiness is the essence of life. If somebody is crying because it makes them happy, that shows that even a crying person is looking for happiness. Because if you ask a person, why are you crying? It makes me feel good. So all our pursuits are to find happiness, but we are doing it at the wrong place. When we connect with God, that's where the eternal happiness is. Lord Krishna, bliss incarnate, was the very life of all in Gokul. Okay, they said that this is our bliss. Auspicious Lord Shiva is indeed the essence of worldly existence. So through all these deities, through all these forms, through all these names, we are supposed to connect with God. That's why he says, knowing God. Gyatvaha. This word gyatva is repeated twice in this verse. It means knowing that one God, ekam gyatva, and knowing alone, gyatva ev, can man free himself from bondage. That means that is the only way. If you're looking for some other shortcut, there's no shortcut. This is the shortcut, knowing God. So it also means that our knowledge of God increases as we come closer to him. Gyatva, gyatva. Our sorrows reduce and our false notions loosen their hold on us. This is what happens. Who is the great architect of this world? That is mentioned again in this next verse. Verse number 17. Eshaha devaha vishvakarmaha mahatma sada jananam hriday sanivishtaha hridamaneshaha manasa vikriliptaha ya etat vidu amrita te bhavanti. Esha, this devaha, the effulgent one, the shining one, Vishvakarma, the creator of the entire universe, Vishvakarma. Mahatma, all-pervading and great. Sada means ever, Jananam, of all beings. Hriday, in the hearts. Sanivishta resides. Harida, in the heart. Manisha, by the intelligence. Manasa, by the mind. Abhi kriliptaha, well protected. Ya means who, etad this, vidu no, amritaha, immortal. Te means they, bhavanti, become. This effulgent and all-pervading Lord, the creator of the entire universe, ever resides in the hearts of all beings. Well protected by the mind and the intelligence which abides in the heart. Those who know this become immortal. So the very first message over here is God is the great architect, Vishwakarma. We all know that Vishwakarma is the presiding deity of all construction. He is like a celestial architect of Lord Brahma. When Lord Krishna wanted to create Dwarka, he called Vishwakarma. We learned that when Pandavas, they were given that Indraprastha, a barren land, Lord Krishna suggested called Vishwakarma. Okay, there Vishwakarma in all our scriptures, he just keeps on appearing. So that's why this term is used over here. He is the celestial architect of Lord Brahma. Because Lord Brahma is the creator, he uses Vishwakarma. That's why in India, there is a day for Vishwakarma. All the construction laborers, artisans, artists, builders, architects, they worship him one day of the year. Just like there's a Guru Day, there's a day for Lord Ram, there's a day for Lord Krishna, so many different days. In this country, we have a Mother's Day, Father's Day, Grandparents' Day. But over there are days for the deities. So Vishwakarma Day. So God is the original designer, planner, and creator of countless cosmos, with countless Lord Brahmas and celestial and mortal artists and architects. Okay, so God is the one who has all this. That's why he says, God, the great being, Mahatma, one whose self is big, is called Mahatma, Mahanatma. Mahanatma yasya iti Mahatma. God is the self of all beings. Indeed, a big self, Mahatma. It also means who has a large heart. That means who is not narrow-minded or petty-minded. See, a small-minded, petty-minded person thinks always in terms of me and mine. A large-hearted person, the entire world is his family. Okay, so it's like a expanded the horizon. The whole world belongs to God, and he has no prejudice, no favoritism, no likes or dislikes towards anything or any being. That's what he's telling us here. We all know that God doesn't stop the supply of oxygen. Even to those who say God doesn't exist. If a person doesn't see the God in the sun, sun doesn't say that I'm not going to shine. Means as the self of even such a person. Manasaha abhikra liptaha, God protected and revealed by the mind. That means God remains protected or hidden in the heart by the thoughts of the mind, which are extrovert. Such a flow of thoughts. Arjun complained. He said, my thoughts are very turbulent, very strong, distracted, compulsive, difficult to control, almost like a tornado. What did Lord Krishna say? In the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, verse number 34, Chanchalam hi mana krishan parmathi balvadram tasyaham nigraham mane yosi su dushkram. This is Arjun's words to Lord Krishna. The same flow of thoughts when turned inward, because Lord Krishna said, with the abhyas and vairagya, you can turn your mind inward, slow down, finally stop to reveal the God within you. You don't have to go anywhere outside, it's right inside. So this is what it means, God protected and revealed by the mind. So right inside us, we got to become introverted. We have become too much extroverted. Sure, we need to do our duties. We need to use the mind to do our duties, but then bring them back. They don't have to keep on running outside aimlessly. Find the God inside. And Lord Krishna said to Arjuna many times, just merge your mind and intellect into me. And that's what we need to do. God is right here. It's not far. Then in the next verse, we'll see next week, the non-dual state of realization. That's revealed in the next mantra. Yada atmaha tatna divana ratri na sat na cha asat shiva eva kevalaha tad aksharam tat savitu varenyam pragya cha tasmat prasrita purani. So we'll start from there next week. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaye Purnameva Vishishyate. Om Shanti 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 Om. Thank you very much.